Rachel. I'm the Director of Programming for the Arkansas Arts and Fashion Forum. We're a Northwest Arkansas-based nonprofit. We typically do education focused on art and fashion with Arkansas-based designers. But over the past few months, we've been hearing more and more from our community that they're interested in learning more about mental health, especially as COVID has lasted longer than we originally anticipated. People have been dealing with social distancing, but still trying to stay connected in this new age we're in. I'm really excited that we get to introduce Caitlin Draper Mattelin. She has her master's in social work. She's a licensed clinical social worker, and she has her advanced certified autism specialist certification from the International Bureau of Credentialing and Continuing Education Standards. She's a psychotherapist and who owns her own private practice in Fayetteville, Arkansas. She graduated with both her undergraduate and graduate degrees from the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville. She specializes in autism spectrum disorders, obsessive compulsive disorder, anxiety disorder, and perinatal mental health. So I want to make a quick disclaimer that this presentation is not a substitute for therapy. If you're personally experiencing a mental health emergency, we recommend that you call 911 and seek immediate help. If you're having just more general stress, anxiety, symptoms of depression, or difficulty coping with everything going on right now, we do recommend that you reach out to a mental health provider, whether it's Caitlin, whose information is available on this event's page, or you can also find on that event page community mental health providers who would be happy to give you some services that you may need. All right, Caitlin, I'll hand it over to you.
Yay, okay. Hi, everyone. I am Caitlin. Today, I really wanted to talk to you guys about mindfulness, to give you kind of an intro to what mindfulness is, and to talk about radical compassion and the practice of RAIN. So we'll go through all of that. But before we get started, I wanted to invite everyone to sort of make an intention for our time together today. The pandemic has been really difficult, I think, for everyone. It's real strange times, and whether you're stuck at home with kids or you're having to work, schools might be reopening, things are just really stressful right now. So take a second just to kind of center, think of an intention, something that you want to work on, stress that you've been having, some pain that you've been feeling. Yeah, for us to kind of focus on. So take a second, take a couple breaths. And while you're thinking about that, I also wanted to kind of name the grief that we've all been experiencing, whether it's missing out on weddings or time with loved ones, time with your friends. There's a lot going on. People are feeling financially unsafe. So, I mean, it's real grief, it's real loss. Yeah, it's all real. And we're going through this as a society. So as individuals and as a society, it's kind of it's a stressful time. If you have questions, put them in the chat and we'll kind of do a little question and answer period before we do our guided meditation. So.
And I wanted to add one thing. If you wouldn't mind chatting it to me, I'm Rachel Woody-Pumford. I'm the host. So you can send it privately just to me, and anyone who's watching on Facebook Live, you can put it in the comments there or send me a message directly, and I'll ask Caitlin so that way we can keep everyone's anonymity because we are posting this live online. I don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable with what they're sharing. So whatever you send to me, we'll keep it private. I won't say who asked the question, but I'll relay it to Caitlin during that question and answer session in the middle.
Awesome. That sounds good. Okay, so mindfulness. I feel like mindfulness is kind of a very vague Zen concept. It kind of reminds me of like the cloud. Like, I don't know, what is the cloud? It's confusing to me. And I think a lot of people think that mindfulness might be inaccessible or something that isn't very clearly defined. So I wanted to take a minute to kind of define for you mindfulness. And then we'll talk about how you can use mindfulness to help cope during these times. So, Thich Nhat Hanh, if you have something to write with, I highly recommend writing his name down. It's THICH NHATHAHN, Thich Nhat Hanh. He's a world-renowned mindfulness expert. He has taught meditation for years and years, and I believe he's a Buddhist monk. But anyway, he describes mindfulness as living in the present moment. One thing that he says that I find really helpful is that when you're living in the past, we can find depression there. When you're living in the future, we can find anxiety. But the only time that we can really touch the joys of being alive is in the present moment. Here's where I think a lot of people struggle. What if your present moment is super crappy? It's human nature to want to reject things that don't feel good. Nobody wants to feel sad. Nobody wants to feel anger. Nobody wants to feel rage. So the resistance to these feelings is what often creates our suffering. So we can practice mindfulness despite our current circumstances. Doesn't matter what's going on. We can find space to be in the present moment. And I'll kind of go over a little bit how you can do that, but maybe take that thing that we established was your intention for today, and use it in this framework. So if you maybe are feeling really stressed out because you've been stuck at home with your kids all day, right? And it's pandemic time, so you don't know when you're going to get relief. Things seem really uncertain. You maybe don't want to feel that, right? And that's when we can tend to do things like overeating, eating for comfort, drinking, drug use, even things like over-controlling, like restricting our eating, focusing on weight loss to a degree that's really unhelpful and unhealthy. Maybe it's compulsive shopping for you. These things are natural, but we can work through mindfulness to heal from those behaviors because they're not helpful. So whatever it is for you that you do to avoid feelings, because we all do, in this space, there is no judgment. So as you're maybe thinking about what it is for you, I would really encourage you to take a step back and to see yourself with compassion. There's this idea that two things that seem opposite can both be true at the same time. And this comes from a theoretical perspective called DBT, or dialectical behavioral therapy. So we can use that to help us come to a place of mindfulness and acceptance. For instance, we can feel like crap. We can have big feelings and feel really uncomfortable. We can feel full of shame. We can feel inadequate. And we can also choose to stay in the present moment. This is true for a lot of things. I have some clients that talk about like when they're feeling really depressed or anxious, they don't want to do anything. They're feeling like lack of motivation, lots of fear. And they might say something like, I am too depressed to get up and clean my house. If we're looking at that statement from a dialectical perspective, we could say like, okay, today I can honor and accept that I'm feeling depressed and I can clean my house. Knowing that ultimately cleaning your house is going to help you feel better. So we're going to use that dialectical sort of perspective as we continue into mindfulness, and radical compassion. So here in a bit, I'm going to teach you a skill called RAIN. It was developed by Tara Brock. She's a clinical psychologist and meditation expert. RAIN stands for recognize, allow, investigate, and nurture. So I've got like an infographic and a ton of links that we'll put up somewhere. So you don't have to worry about remembering what the acronym means. But RAIN can help you to reach a place of mindfulness, of self-compassion, which is ultimately radical compassion, even if your present moment is very painful. So a few ways that we can practice mindfulness in our everyday lives. We're going to talk a little bit about mindful walking, mindful eating, some grounding exercises, and this concept called one thing mindfully. Okay, so I don't know about you all, but in my neighborhood, ever since March, people are walking around like crazy. I don't think walking has ever been such a social activity until March, until these times. When you're walking, often we get stuck in our thoughts, somewhere not even in the present moment. Do you ever do something like dishes or while you're cleaning your house and you almost forget you have a physical body? Like you're in your thoughts so much that you don't even, like you're not even aware of what your feet feel like on the ground or the rate of your breath. This is a way that we use things in order to avoid coping. So as you're walking alone or with your friends, maybe you're thinking about what you're going to do tomorrow. My thoughts always drift to lunch. I don't know why. I love thinking about lunch. What am I going to have for lunch tomorrow? But if you're going to try a mindful walking, that would look like going outside. And as you're walking, you can practice using your five senses. So what do my feet feel like on the pavement? Breathing, noticing how it feels to breathe and walk. Saying, what can I see right now? Even in this moment, like noticing something maybe about the background, like did you notice the plant? Did you notice how many rows of shelves are there? These practices can help us really stay in the present moment. Thich Nhat Hanh has a walking meditation. And as you walk and as you breathe, on the inhale, you say, with every step, I am home. And with every exhale, I am safe. In 2013, I moved to New York for only about 5 months. That's all I lasted. But I was really homesick, and there's a lot of people and buildings. It's congested. And I found myself feeling very stressed out as I was walking around to work or to hang out with friends, whatever. Using Thich Nhat Hanh's mindfulness walking, it gives you space to be able to interact with and react to painful emotions in a different way. So often when we feel sad, we might have a compulsion to do something destructive, like drink or fight or bury your head in the television, watch TV. I love TV. but it can for sure be an escape that's not very healthy or helpful. So taking the time to practice this mindfulness through mindful walking can be really helpful. So again, as you're walking, you're looking around at the trees and trying to identify what you might be smelling or seeing or hearing. And with each in-breath, with every step, I am home. And with the out-breath, I am safe. And that's ultimately because home is here in the present moment. So that's mindful walking. I would encourage you to try a nice mindful walk and rate your level of anxiety before you leave, and then rate your level of anxiety when you come back. I think that could be an interesting experiment with all of these practices so that you can see what works for you best. Okay, so mindful eating. We talk about mindful eating a lot in eating disorder recovery. Mindful eating is the idea that you eat when you're hungry. You make a dedicated space to eat food. Like, I'm so guilty of sitting on the couch with my husband watching TV while we eat. But we eat and we don't realize, that we're eating, that we're full. We don't taste our food. And it can kind of contribute to that like mental clutter. Not really setting a time and a space to be quiet and to enjoy eating. So that's kind of the gist of mindful eating, how you can use it when you're feeling anxious or stressed, when you're feeling like maybe you're escalated, is maybe take a glass of ice water, or you can take an apple, something that's not very neutral. Like, you want something that's crunchy or cold, something with a lot of flavor. And you sit down if you're hungry. And with each bite, you try to notice as much as you can. So I love eating apples. And sometimes when I'm practicing mindful eating, I like to close my eyes and think about, like, how often do we eat apples and not think about like what the skin tastes like, or what it feels like going down your throat, what it feels like, the sensation of being full. For a few years, I worked at an inpatient psychiatric hospital, and I had a patient that was experiencing psychosis. So she was not experiencing the same reality that we experienced. She began to panic and she was super escalated. She was very scared. And I think sometimes as helpers, everybody feels this. Like, I want to help so bad, I don't know what to do. So I remembered trying some mindful eating. Even this works with a peppermint too, by the way. Like, a peppermint's very sensory, packed with a lot of sensory information. So I went to the cafeteria and I got this girl a piece of chocolate cake and some milk. And after she had her first bite, I'm like, here, just eat this, trust me, right? So she has her first bite, and we start with some, like, okay, what does this taste like? Is the cake, is it cold? Is it chilled? Is it warm? What does it taste like with the milk? And after she was about halfway through, she started like being quiet. And I could tell she was calming down. And at the end, she said, man, I forgot how much chocolate helps. Chocolate really helps. So you want to use mindful eating responsibly. We don't want it to become something that we rely on to bring too much comfort, or as an unhealthy coping skill. But when you're hungry, if you're trying to cultivate mindfulness, or if you're in a moment of extreme distress, using mindful eating, even if it's a glass of water or peppermint, can be very helpful. There's also really good research about peppermints as an intervention for anxiety. There's a group called the Cochrane Group that does various studies. They did a study with veterans that had been previously diagnosed with PTSD. They had their experimental group and their control group. So each group was placed under a functional MRI machine and scanned as they were being shown images that were triggering, which is really sad. But what they found was the group of people, the control group, they said, yeah, I'm about to have a panic attack. There was no intervention. The experimental group would say, yeah, I'm about to have a panic attack. They were given a peppermint, and something like 86% of veterans, the peppermint helped them to avoid flashback or panic. And what they found was that this activity starts in one hemisphere of our brain. And as the activity, the electrical activity increases and escalates, it transfers hemispheres and lights up your whole brain. That's when we become panicked, or for those of us that struggle with PTSD, that's when you might experience a flashback. But something like a peppermint, it's small, but it's visually striking, right? Like the red and the white, smells very strong. You can hear the crunch, you can taste it. So it really invokes all 5 of our senses and can help you to de-escalate and to stay in the moment. Okay, so the next exercise is grounding. Really, grounding is not much different than anything we've talked about so far. So a grounding exercise that I like to do is putting my feet flat on the ground. So you can try this with me if you want or not. But put your feet flat on the ground and take a second to kind of find yourself in your seat or wherever you are. Like, start with your feet. Notice what they feel like on the ground. If you're maybe sitting or lying on a bed, what does it feel like to sit? Are you noticing any pain anywhere in your body? Are you hungry? What do you hear? Taking a second just to sort of remind ourselves that we are here, we are grounded in this moment, can be incredibly helpful. Particularly when you might be feeling stressed or uncomfortable. Grounding is really about using your 5 senses to find yourself in the present moment. Often, when we feel really escalated and anxious or upset, it's stuff that doesn't exist in this present moment, right? If I'm, I'll even like do a hard one, like money, right? If you're really stressed out about money, that feels so pervasive in your life, like it overtakes everything, like we need money to survive. But when we are caught up in like, what am I going to do about next month's bills? And God, I hope my retirement's going to be okay. And how much can I sell this for? And how am I going to get, this and that? There's a time that we can make for worry. It's an exercise called like worry time. Usually people devote like 15 minutes of their day to worrying. I do that in the shower. That's my worry time. So as you go throughout your day and you're thinking, I'm really stressed about money, you can say, okay, I'll worry about that during worry time. But when you focus and you ground yourself in this moment, most of the time you begin to realize like, okay, no one's trying to hurt me. I'm safe. I'm protected in this moment. There is a shelter over my head. And then you can use that space to react from a place of wisdom and not from fear or panic. So that's grounding. And then one thing mindfully is our last sort of mindfulness skill, and then we'll talk about radical compassion. So one thing mindfully, I really like to clean and I really like to organize. But like before I started practicing mindfulness, that would be something that I would do to get away, to escape, right? Like it can be really cathartic just to not really think about anything. But we can use one thing mindfully to do simple everyday activities of daily living in order to practice mindfulness. So when I'm doing the dishes, I'm doing the dishes. I'm not thinking about my taxes. I'm not planning my next session. I'm doing the dishes. I'm experiencing what it's like to stand over my sink and feel the water on my hands and the soap, and like taking care to clean each dish. Which at first is like boring and it's very hard because your mind's going to wander and wonder, but that's okay. That means you're doing it right. It's a practice and it's not going to be perfect at first. It's never going to be perfect. But we continue to try and to practice. So, okay. If you have any questions, send them over to Rachel.
We've gotten a couple.
Yes.
So the first one is, do you have any strategies to cope with feelings of being lonely or loneliness while still social distancing?
Yes. Using mindfulness and self-compassion, which we'll talk about, Rain, to really sit in that feeling of loneliness. So I think Rain's going to be your biggest help, which again, I'll go over. But taking time to notice as you're practicing mindfulness, what love you have in your life. Zoom calls are not the same as, grabbing dinner with your friends or seeing your kids, or, phone calls just don't really feel as fulfilling. But when you feel that loneliness, stopping and allowing it to be there, resting in it for a moment, and then nurturing yourself by either physical touch or engaging in something that kind of gets you out of that loneliness cycle, like calling a friend, calling a family member. There are a ton of online communities. For sure, loneliness is a very uncomfortable and often devastating emotion. But remembering the love that you have in your life and accepting the loneliness, accepting the feeling, and knowing that it's not going to last forever can be a really helpful way to cope.
Awesome. The next question we have is, social media has been bad for my anxiety between the endless bad news and fights with family. Do you have any tips to take an actual break from it? It seems like it's really hard to step away.
It is so hard to step away. I find myself, I scroll a lot. When I find myself scrolling, I like to take a step back and ask myself, what is it that I'm trying? What am I doing here? Am I getting information? Am I trying to connect with people? Do I want to be seen in some way? Yeah, what am I doing here? Am I hoping that Instagram shows me another weird clothing company that I'll, compulsively buy something from? I don't know. But what am I looking for? Stimulation, maybe? Social media although I take part in it, and I think most of us do in some way, can be really damaging. So, the first thing is to limit your social media time. If you're finding it hard to completely step away, maybe take a stance like worry time, and I would not do it at nighttime for sure, but maybe in the morning, taking a second to do your 15-minute scroll. If you're on Instagram or even Facebook, unfollowing people that make you feel less than or unworthy. We all know those Instagram accounts that are overboard on looking perfect, like all the post pictures. It's really exhausting. So taking a step back, limiting your time on social media, and making sure that you're following people or organizations that are uplifting or not stressful to you.
All right. And then the last question I have, if anyone has one, you're welcome to chat it to me now, or I believe there's going to be another question time before the guided meditation. Yes. So that's what we have for right now is, how do you keep worry time from becoming overwhelming? Like, how do you stop it once it starts?
That's such a good question. That's one reason why I don't do worry time when I'm doing something like static. Like I don't sit somewhere and I'm like, okay, go, worry time. It's something you have to practice, but I enjoy doing worry time when I'm physically doing something. So I love taking an anxious shower. Like I can scrub and I can feel clean, and that feels really relaxing to me. And there's like a definite ending to the shower. I can't stay in the shower for an hour. So practicing making that deal with yourself, like I'm stepping into the shower, I'm stepping into worry time. And when you're done showering, like you're going to put those thoughts on a shelf and you're going to come get them tomorrow. Sometimes if we have like really big things, like we're trying to plan an event, or we're, I don't know, trying to budget or things like that, you may need to schedule 2 worry times until you can kind of get it down to 1. But that gives you confidence in learning to contain those things and to not ruminate.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so radical compassion. This is also a very abstract. I cannot believe how fast time is flying, so we'll hurry. We won't hurry, but we'll get it done. Radical compassion is also a super abstract concept. But now that we know a little bit about mindfulness, we can talk about radical compassion. So radical compassion is based on an idea from Tara Brach. This is her book, Radical Compassion. And of course, we're only going to skim the surface today. But just know today, I'm talking about radical self-compassion. Eventually, once you practice radical compassion with yourself, then you're able to sort of practice it, having compassion for others in a very radical way. Radical meaning like limitless. And that's where you get into things like forgiving deep wounds, trauma healing, things like that. But the first step is to heal yourself. So, according to Tara Brach, I wrote down a quote, radical compassion means including the vulnerability of this life, all life, in our heart. It means having the courage to love ourselves, each other, and our world. Radical compassion is rooted in mindful, embodied presence, and is expressed actively through caring that includes all beings. So I really find that very abstract. But what I don't find abstract is the practice of RAIN that helps us reach a place of radical compassion for ourselves and for others. So Tara Brach describes this concept of being in a trance of unworthiness. I think most people feel that, especially women. The trance of unworthiness looks like feeling unworthy, feeling deeply flawed, feeling less than, judging ourselves. There's a feeling a lot of people describe of like, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm not doing enough. I'm not enough. You know, and then another symptom of the trance of unworthiness is over control or projecting your blame outward onto others. So not really having that tolerance to accept, you know, the things that we can work on, but rather projecting that onto other people. And we do that because we feel unworthy, because we're sad, because our society is messed up. I think though, even if you were to take the social construct out, we would probably all, in some way at times, feel deeply unworthy. I think it's human nature. So the trance of unworthiness is illustrated really well in a story that Tara Brach tells about a friend of hers. Her mom was on her deathbed, and before she passed, she looked at her daughter and said, all my life, I thought something was wrong with me. And those were her last words. So I think we can all kind of relate to that to some extent. And if you've done a lot of healing work, maybe you don't feel that way anymore, which is amazing. So the goal of radical compassion is to stop the war with ourselves, to accept ourselves truly for who we are. And Tara, I'll just say Tara for short, you know, I'm talking about Tara Brach. She has a mantra that I think really captures the idea of radical compassion well. And that is, may I learn to love and accept myself just as I am. And once we really learn those skills of like, of unconditional sort of compassionate love, we can apply those to others. So let's start with rain. I had more stuff to say. We'll just do rain, question and answer, and then guided meditation. So rain is, I want you to think about rain as a tool. Rain is what you can use to reach a state of radical compassion. And it's a tool that's within the realm of mindfulness. So they're all sort of interconnected. RAIN stands for recognize. You're going to recognize your emotions. A, allow them to be there. I, investigate. Why am I feeling this way? What am I feeling in my body? And then N is nurture. So let's start with recognizing. I use this a lot in my daily life, and I can say it's really helped me in my healing journey. But let's use an example. So let's say that you are scrolling on social media and you see the civil unrest on one post, you see like a weight loss ad on the next post, you're like, God. And then you see like pandemic stuff is blowing up on the next post, and you're starting to feel something. Often our bodies will alert us to what we're feeling before our mind can really catch up. So maybe you're feeling tense in your shoulders. Maybe you're feeling like a headache's coming on. Maybe your chest is feeling tight, or your stomach. In order to recognize, you really want to start to connect with your body. So as I'm scrolling, I might notice that my shoulders are up to my ears and stressed out. You know, I don't like seeing all of this. It's upsetting, right? So I stop and I recognize what it is I'm feeling. Okay. I'm feeling overwhelmed. That's for sure. I'm feeling helpless. We call out these things by name. I'm feeling desperate. I'm feeling out of control, whatever it is that you're feeling. And then we also want to tag along how we're feeling in our body. So I'm feeling helpless and my shoulders are very tense. When you recognize, okay, this is a thing, I'm having a feeling. First of all, each of these steps also help you to react to really intense emotions in a way that's less destructive. So if we allow, or we're recognizing first what we're feeling, we're less likely to blow up in anger, or we're less likely to take it out on ourselves and say mean things to ourselves, like, oh, you idiot, or whatever, because we're stopping and recognizing what we're feeling. So after we recognize, we allow the feeling to be there. And that's what I think most of us struggle with, probably the most. Again, human nature, we don't want to feel that. It's uncomfortable, it's unpleasant. So we drink, or we shop, or we binge eat, or we undereat, or we overclean, or we whatever, in order to not feel that way. So there's a story that Thich Nhat Hanh, our friend Thich, tells us about the Buddha. He's traveling along in India, and his trusted assistant Ananda sees in the forest their biggest enemy, Mara. I always want to say Mara. So Ananda's like, Buddha, there's Mara. He's in the woods. Let's get him. Let's run. We got to get away from here. And in the story, the Buddha says, no. Let's call to him and invite him for tea. So the Buddha does that, and Mara comes for tea, and it's uncomfortable, but it's also healing. So when we allow our emotions to be there, an exercise that you can do is to say yes. So you're feeling the things we just described, right? Overwhelmed, less than, helpless, confused, tense. When we allow our emotions to be there, we can say yes, fear. Yes, unworthiness. When we allow our emotions to be there, the energy that we're using typically to push the feeling or thought away becomes more of an empowering experience of you can sit with me. I can be anxious. It's okay. Sit with me. I don't have to interact with you. I don't have to engage. I don't have to do anything about it, but you can be here. And what we find after practice is that feeling transforms. It does change. So we allow the emotion to be there. I investigate, where is this feeling coming from? Well, there's a pandemic. Yeah, I think maybe that's where some of this feeling of helplessness is coming from. You may have the urge to say yeah, but people are going through much worse. It's, I have plenty, I'm good. I shouldn't be feeling this way. Using judgmental feelings or thoughts towards yourself really perpetuates the suffering, because you have to allow it to be there, and you have to acknowledge that it's okay that you're feeling that way, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's scary, even if it feels like too much. Allowing it to be there invites healing. So as we continue to investigate, the more you practice, the deeper you can get in your investigation. Where is this coming from? Have I had an experience in my life that caused me to feel very helpless? Okay, yeah, I'm remembering this experience where I felt really helpless. This is coming to my attention and it needs healing. So, maybe in my meditation later, maybe in my journal, maybe with my therapist, I can talk about how I can heal from that. Okay, I'm allowing it to be here, it's fine. And then within nurture, we really sit with ourselves and practice loving kindness. People often feel like they shouldn't be feeling the way that they're feeling. So I have clients all the time that maybe a loved one passed away from dementia, or from something that, like an illness that you can see that's a long time coming, and there's a lot of suffering in the end, and they say, like, I shouldn't feel relieved, but I am. In our time of nurturing, we allow ourselves to feel that way, and we know that it's okay. So one way that sounds really silly, that's actually very helpful, is to connect with your inner self, however you see that inner self. My mom would laugh at this. I see mine as like a little deer. I hated watching Bambi. I'd always cry. But I see mine as a little deer. And so when I'm feeling a big emotion, or I'm scared, or I'm feeling helpless, you can talk to that inner person. You can say, like, hey, it's okay. It's okay that you're scared. You have a right to feel the way you feel. You can feel scared. You can feel confused. But we sit in it. I'm here with you. Some people also like to use nurturing from like a spiritual thing, right? Like, so you can imagine God or whatever your higher power is being with you, giving you light and comfort and nurturing. I've had people use a pet that's passed away as like their guide, their spirit guide, or whatever, their comforting presence that they use when they're attempting to nurture. So as we nurture ourselves, one thing I really like to do is to touch. So we can touch the inside of our arms. You may want to give that a try if you've never done it. This is a very sensitive area, and it's very relaxing. So you can sit, take a breath, rub your arm. Another thing that I really like to do is to put one hand over my chest and one hand over my belly, and feel myself breathe. In this way, I feel very held. I feel like I'm learning to nurture myself. It feels comfortable and safe. So that's another way of nurturing yourself. Above all, though, the goal in RAIN, and especially like in the nurturing piece, is to stop the war with yourself, is to stop the judgment toward yourself, is to stop the shoulds or the comparison, the blame toward yourself, and to recognize like that we're all in this human experience together, and it's weird. It's a weird experience. But allowing the feelings to be there allows them to transform. So that was a real quick run through of radical compassion and RAIN. But are there any questions?
Yes. So the first one is, what was the Tara Branch quote about loving myself again? And I do want to say that if you're curious, it will be up on YouTube later, so you can watch it. But Caitlin, if you have it handy off the top of your head.
I do. And I love mantras. Mantras are everything for me. So this Tara Brach mantra is, may I learn to love and accept myself just as I am. I add, may I learn to, because I think it's something I'm trying to learn. We're all trying to learn. But I believe Tara Brach just says, may I love and accept myself just as I am.
Nice. The next question is, with everything going on, I've been feeling foggy and forgetful, numb, the feeling of who even knows what day it is. It makes it hard to recognize in the moment how I'm feeling. So I'm going to add, can you walk us through a RAIN for those kinds of feelings as like a starting point, even though it might not be exactly what this person's feeling in the moment and going on, but like.
Yes. So what were the feelings? Numbness, foggy.
Yeah, forgetful, like they don't even know what day it is anymore, especially since, everyone's working at home, and it's hard to say, like, is it Tuesday or Monday or Thursday, or is it Saturday? Who even knows?
I thought Saturday was Sunday this week. So as we walk through a quick rein, addressing these feelings, I would be curious to know, first of all, I want this person to know, whoever you are, that if you could see everyone listening right now, they would probably all be nodding their head. You're not alone. I think this is a very common experience during these times. And some of that numbness and the fogginess can actually be a symptom of trauma. And I think collectively as a society, we're going to be experiencing symptoms of trauma individually and as a group. So I would be interested to know when you notice these things. So like, is it when you wake up and you just feel like you're kind of walking through the motions? Is it when you are walking the dog? Is it when you're trying to tend to your kids? When is this that you're feeling this? So as you begin to create awareness around that, your first thought might be, yeah, I'm having that feeling. Like, I forgot where I put my phone. It's the 8th time that's happened today. Then you can stop. Okay. Like, I am feeling foggy and forgetful. I don't like this feeling. I hate not knowing what is going on inside of me. I hate that numbness. I don't even know what day it is. You recognize that feeling. You allow those feelings to be there. Specifically the numbness, I think numbness comes about when we're trying to dissociate in some way. Like, our experience is so uncomfortable, we don't want to be there. So, our brains are so good at trying to help us, but often in these cases, it doesn't end up helping, it hurts. So, the cloudiness and the fogginess and the numbness come to help you separate. But noticing in that moment through investigation, the I, okay, I am feeling numb. What might I be trying to run from? What might my brain be trying to help me with? Oh, it's that crushing like depression of being in my house all day. It's the stress of not knowing when this is going to end. Like, I cannot deal with that, right? But sitting with that, allowing it to be there, and encouraging those feelings, and not trying to stuff them away by, untruthful statements like, I can't deal with this. This is too much. Yeah. And then as we nurture, I hope that you find nurturing and that you're not alone. Knowing that this is going to pass and you're going to feel differently. This feeling is temporary. It's not permanent. But to this person and to anyone else feeling this way, I would also encourage you to have like a ritual at some point in the day. In times in my life where I've been really busy, sometimes my ritual is literally just lighting a candle. I light a candle and I say something to myself like, may I learn to love and accept myself just as I am. Or, today I know I'm able to feel without hiding, or I am worthy, or whatever it is that you want to use. So I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, sounds helpful to me. I think, yeah, like you said, a lot of people right now, it's so hard to avoid feeling that when you don't know what day it is or how to keep track of everything going on. It's easy to feel forgetful or not realize you forgot to do something or things are falling. All right. Well, that was our last question. If there's time for questions at the end, people can still message me and I'll get them over to Caitlin. If not, I think we're ready for the guided meditation.
Okay. So this is just a little taste into meditation. There's lots of different kinds of meditation. So the kind that I'm going to guide you through today is just a brief, like, grounding meditation. I want you all to know a couple of things before we get started. Number one, if this is your first time, even if it's your 1,000th time to meditate, like, you're not going to be great at it. No, it's not human nature, like, unless you reach nirvana or like develop your third eye or whatever people believe, you're not going to not be thinking about something at some point. So it can feel intrusive, like these thoughts come, and you're like, oh, I'm trying to meditate. Non-judge mentally towards yourself, acknowledge the thoughts are there, thank them for their presence, and if you can, turn your attention back to your breath. That's another reason why I really like to put my hand over my chest and my belly, because I can feel myself breathe, and it reminds me to take my attention back to my breath. Okay, so you'll want to get somewhere comfortable. If you're seated in a chair, you might find a comfortable position. You can close your eyes, you can keep them open. Just get to a place where you feel like safe and comfortable and okay. You might have lots and lots of thoughts going through your mind right now. And as we go through this meditation, your breath is going to be your guide back home, back to a place of mindfulness, a place of safety. So I want you to start by noticing what it feels like to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Notice how cold the air is, like a stream flowing in through your nose and out through your mouth. You may find it helpful to add some resistance to your out breath by closing your throat a little bit. Making a little sound as you breathe out. You find yourself feeling silly. If you find yourself judging yourself, just take a moment to soften and to feel your breath. Something that's coming up for me right now is the feeling of breathing with joy. Finding joy in the accessibility of this moment. Finding peace in our breath. And as we continue, start from the very top of your head, working your way down, scanning your body for any tension. there any tension in your forehead, in between your eyes, your ears? As you scan through your shoulders, your arms, your abdomen, your hips, when you breathe in, imagine white, loving light. Invite that light into the space that's tense, that feels pain. And on your inhale, you can think white light. And on the out breath, you can think healing. You can breathe normally, still focusing on that attention of your breath. Or if you enjoy the feeling of taking purposeful deep breaths, you can continue to do that as well. Once we've scanned through our bodies, inviting healing, inviting presence and light into these spaces that feel tense. I want to invite you to imagine yourself floating. Maybe relaxing your body in a way that you feel a little disconnected from your body. Maybe your mind, your brain, your spirit, stretching. And feeling free. During these tough times, we can often neglect caring for ourselves. When in reality, we require the same sort of love, caring, water, and attention that a flower does. Maybe your flower feels a little wilted, exhausted, lonely. Take a moment and on your next in-breath, as you inhale, I see myself as a flower. And on your exhale, I feel fresh. You can shorten that to flower, fresh. Maybe visualizing watering and sunning your flower. and visualizing it coming to life. Feeling fresh and open. If you find your mind wandering, just bring it back gently to your breath. And find a moment of nurturing in yourself. Watering your flower. Nurturing breath. And as we prepare to end this meditation, I'd invite you to thank yourself for participating, for doing something for you, for trying something new. And as we come back, you can open your eyes, get reconnected to your body. All right. Thank you all for joining me, and I hope you found this useful. If you have questions, you're welcome to email me at caitlin@caitlindraper.com. Yeah. Thank you, Rachel, for having me.
Thank you so much for leading this. I really enjoyed it. It's always great getting to learn more about mindfulness and radical compassion. And if anyone would like to know more about Caitlin, we've got her information also on the event page. And if you'd like to hear more from Caitlin or other mental health professionals in the area, please let us know topics that you're interested in. We'd love to help provide that resource for you.
Yes. All right. Thank you.
Have a great evening, everyone.